Hello. I can see that we have good connection, and I hope that you can hear me well and see my screen. Could you please tell me whether everything is fine? One, two, three. Let's check the mic again. Please write your answers in live streaming channel. Oh, okay, cool. Guys, I can see your messages in YouTube chat, but please better go to Discord live streaming channel because I will look there. I will not see your questions if you will ask them in YouTube chat. Okay. I think we can probably start because yes, today task review happened one day earlier, but unfortunately I have no possibility to perform it tomorrow. But still, I want this session to be live because you may ask your questions, I may answer them. I think it would be better than have just like recording and chat conversations. And if you are worried that if you worry that someone will steal your solution and so on, guys, you can see that we expel people on every task and if someone decided to cheat and steal solution, it will not help because we will find those stolen lines of codes and all cheaters will be expelled. So I don't think that early review makes something worse. So please don't worry. And we will still have review and task issuance. You will have opportunity to ask a question. So I think everything is pretty fine here. Okay, so let's begin with our task 7 solution. Here is solution from a student with GitHub ID BambluV, and it seems that task is implemented fully according to student self-check. I will not check stuff related to commits before deadline and so on. You can see that he has a separate development branch. We see pull request. Pull request description contains necessary sections. We will run linter and during the check to check this point. And we see that obviously there are more than 3 commits in development branch. So this forfeit is also not applied here. Okay, so let's probably start. I cloned repository. Let's install dependencies. Oh, sorry. Before installing dependencies, we should go to development branch, and after that we should interesting. Use TypeScript. Something is wrong. Perhaps this is because previous installation was partially finished. Let's try again. Everything is fine. And let's try to start service. It runs on port 4000 by default. And let's try to run tests. We are running tests without authorization. It's passed. Okay. Let's try to create .env file and change port. Server is running on port 4001, and let's try to get all users to check. Maybe it's just message in console. Maybe it doesn't work that way, but nope. We can get all users, and it seems to be working on appropriate port. Okay, cool. What else do we have to check according to the assignment? Repository with application contains README MD file with detailed instruction for installing, running, and using the application. Let's check it. Okay, let's open it in preview mode. Yeah, we have to install Node.js. Here is instruction how to clone repository, install npm modules, create .env, specify port. We can run OpenAPI spec on port 80 using Docker Compose. Oh, okay, cool. Let's probably start. By the way, it would be better to have this as npm script. I'm not sure that I have installed Docker, but on this machine. But let's probably try. It was not mandatory, but oh, unfortunately I have no installed Docker here, but okay. I trust students that it works. And npm start and npm run test commands are used for testing. I will not check correctness of API YAML file. It should be done manually, but okay, let's assume that it's correct and corresponds with assignment. We also have to check that code related to functionality related with different entities is split between modules according to its purpose and Node.js architecture conventions. For example, we have separated folder. We can see that we have separated file for module, for service, controller. We have separated modules that contains data transfer objects. We have separated folder that contains our interfaces that are implemented by our what else we have here? Yeah. So it seems that code is split properly. Track, user, same stuff everywhere. This is how Nest.js expects us to work with those modules, because if we will generate, for example, a CRUD endpoint, if we will implement CRUD functionality, it will be split into modules in similar way. So it seems to be working correctly. Also, we can see that some stuff is extracted into common folder, some stuff is extracted into database folder. This is our in-memory database as far as I understand. So, okay, it seems that modules are extracted. And we have all tests passed. So we can assume that functional scope criteria are also met. I will check questions in chat before I proceed. Maybe you have some. He can't have commit after the line before. Yeah, Roman, you are correct. But we still need to check. Should we implement creation of up-to-date doc API YAML each time our server starts? Nope. You know, this requirement is quite obsolete because previously we had the incorrect API YAML file, and students were expected to check it and familiarize themselves with OpenAPI notation, but taking into account that Node.js contains decorators for OpenAPI specifications that can be used let's say, developing your OpenAPI specification in parallel with your actual functionality. Taking into account this fact, maybe this requirement to support separated API YAML file is not necessary, but we will probably remove it in next iterations. But only requirement to get your score is that content of API YAML file corresponds with actual functionality. It shouldn't be deployed somewhere, it shouldn't be live generated, you have no score for Swagger decorators from Node.js and so on. Just what you see in assignment. Just score for implemented API YAML functionality. Nothing else. Should I extract interface to separate file from DTOTS if I don't use them for anything else? I think that not really, because if you don't use it, why should you extract it? You should extract reusable stuff. Should we deduct score if students throw HTTP errors from services? Nope. You should extract. You should apply forfeits or not apply score if it doesn't correspond with scoring. You have no such points in score. But is it okay to generate OpenAPI and just update doc YAML and still use live generated? If it generates a correct YAML file, why not, Ilya? It's even better, but probably assignment description is outdated. That's why we have it here. So every working option is correct. Okay. Let's probably proceed with code, because we've seen that tests are passed, but many variants of how it may work can pass tests, but we can see some inconsistencies inside. First of all, we go from root module, it's app module TS. It imports a lot of stuff, config module to work with application configuration, all related modules that works with entities. We import modules that provides database functionality, favorites modules, and it works only with app controller and app service. Let's check what's inside app controller. It's empty. And probably we could remove this get hello stub, because yes, when you generate a Nest.js project, it contains this get hello handler for get method, yes, and this is hello world, but I'm not sure we need it in real world. Not sure. I'm sure that we don't need it. Okay. Let's take a look at main file. It contains asynchronous function bootstrap, which creates Nest.js application. We initialize configuration service here. We apply some global stuff like global pipes. Here we provide a validation pipe to perform validations. Also, here we get value from port variable from .env file here. And use 4000 as fallback. And after that, we run app listen, and our server is running. Nothing special here, to be honest. It's just necessary boilerplate to run our server. Okay, let's probably take a look at database module. It exports database service. What's inside? We have here enum that represents all our database entities. And I have some suggestions here. First of all, probably it would be better to not use big letters here. I mean, it would be better to name it like this to follow camel case. Even if we know that DB are expected to be two big letters, it's better to use, let's say, consistent naming here. Also, enum members are expected to be in camel case as well. So it shouldn't be lowercase, it should be uppercase. Let's probably try to replace stuff. DB entities. Okay, and let's probably better run our server in dev mode. Okay, seems that everything is correct now. What else do we have here? We have defined properties of DB service. Once again, DB service is better to name it like this. We have here one method, is entity exist, and it checks for entity of certain type, which is expected to be a member of DB entities enum, and checks for some ID. And we have some stuff that can be improved here. First of all, ID is not typed. I think it should be string. It's expected to be string because our IDs are UU IDs, which are strings. Also, this naming, it contains a typo, first of all, yeah, because if entity exists, but another concern is that according to its naming, I think that we don't expect error from this method, right? So this is like if entity exists, if it doesn't exist, we have to return false from this method. So naming is a little bit not semantic. I'm not sure what is the correct name of this method. Probably check entity exists. Let's probably try to replace it. Is entity exist with this one? And okay, what else we can improve here? We find corresponding mock database based on entity type, and then we try to find it, to find the record by ID. What's wrong with this type? Maybe you guys have an answer here. Like you can rename enum keys through F2. TS has error about it. Not really. It just type is not correct because we have here array of entities that can be user entity, track, artist, album, and it's not true because we don't have such mixed arrays. If we will remove this explicit type, we should see correct type from TypeScript. And you don't need to provide types where TypeScript knows it already. Yeah, as far as you can see, this is users repository or tracks repository or artists repository or albums repository. It's not mixed together. You can get runtime errors when you rely on incorrect types. So it's important to have types up to date with your real values. Okay, so we get database. We find corresponding database on by entity type. We find entity. We throw db not found error. And once again, db not found doesn't looks like a correct error for this. I mean, from name perspective, because db not found is associated with stuff like we didn't find a proper database, right? But we didn't find entity, not database. So I would probably replace it with not found. Cannot find module not found. This is because now it should work correctly. Okay, what else do we have here? Entity type. Okay, if entity doesn't exist, we throw error. If it exists, we return true. As I mentioned, we don't need to return true, but I will not spend time because we can assume that if we didn't throw error, entity is found. So I will not waste time on change and implementation, but I think you've got the idea. Okay, we understand correctly what's going on here. Let's probably take a look at, I don't know, let's begin from users. Let's begin from module. We have controller and service here. First of all, let's take a look at controller. Controller is responsible for work with requests that come to endpoint user. As we can see here, it contains user service that is provided using dependency injection, and it contains a couple of methods that have decorators with corresponding HTTP methods. applied. And what else we have here? We have here a method to create new user that accepts create user DTO, and applied body decorator that will transform our data transfer object to values that we can work with. Okay, we have handler for get method with no ID provide that will return us all values from user service find all method. Also we have find one method that works with ID provided as pass parameter, similar to any other backend frameworks and libraries. It's provided using this colon. So this means that it's pass parameter. Also here we validated using parse UEID pipe. It's internal stuff included in Node.js out of the box. We explicitly mentioned that we expect UEID, not just any version, and we have specific version here. And this decorator is applied to parameter ID, which is type of string. We try to find one user, then we catch error and check if we have not found error, they throw not found exception. I already see one problem here, but let's first try to check other methods and probably we will discuss it later. Okay, what else we have here? We have here handler for put request, because we need to be able to replace old password with new one. It should happen only when we provided correct old password. And we can have here two cases. One is when we provided correct UUID as a user identifier, but we don't have such user in our database. We will see later how it's implemented on service level. And another one, I assume, is related when we provided not correct password. We have to return forbidden error in this case, and we handle those two cases. What else do we have here? We have handler for delete method. By the way, we have here a decorator that applies certain HTTP code to our response. This will be no content code, which is valid code for situations when request is handled correctly, but we have nothing to return. And here we check only for not found error. Okay, what problem do you see here in try-catch logic? Here and everywhere across this controller. This we got TS error. Who should catch error arising from DB? Service or controller? If service works with database, I think that service is problem in async errors. Nope, it's synchronous. By the way, I would suggest you to make your functions and methods asynchronous, because later you will work with real database and it will be easier for you to switch you will not need to change your code a lot, because you will just change layers that works with database, and the rest of your stuff will work correctly without big changes. Nope, it's not about asynchronous errors. Yeah, Thomas is right, because we handle only those two kinds of errors. If we will have some unexpected error, like let's try to, I don't know, let's try to create simplified case. And we will throw some unexpected error here. And let's copy this code for catch section. And okay, let's try to get all the users. And what do we see here? We have code OK, which tells us that your request has been accepted and it was processed correctly and you've got a good response, but we see nothing here. What do we need to fix this? We have to see internal server error here. We need else. Not really. We don't need else. It's a commonly used approach. When you handle known errors and unknown errors, you just throw it to be caught by upper level handler. So in this case, if we will try to get this error, we will get status code 500 and internal server error message. Node.js has this functionality out of the box. You don't need to explicitly like throw new internal server error exception. But you can have more logic here. I don't know. Maybe you want to expose some message to your user. You can see that you can see message from your error here. It depends on who works with your application and what should that can be exposed. But in general, if you will just throw some unexpected error, Node.js will handle it for you. That's why we like it so much. That's it. Okay. What else do we have here? Let's probably check user DTOs. We have data transfer object for user creation and for update user password. Update user DTO. I would name it update user password DTO or something like this, but okay, it's minor stuff. We have decorators for validation that will work when we will try to provide wrong type or if value will be missing. Only one suggestion from my side here is to split this stuff by new line, because just like in any other cases in JavaScript and TypeScript, you can have any amount of new lines you need. It will just increase readability here. Okay, entity. Here is user entity class that implements user interface. We know that classes can implement certain interfaces. In TypeScript, it's very convenient for us. What else is good here? We have this nice exclude decorator that what it does, by the way. Yeah, we will have this property excluded from our response. thanks to this decorator. Also, I don't think that it's good to use this kind of assignment because, okay, it works correctly in TypeScript, and if this entity is created not from user input, if it's validated, it's fine. But in general, in my opinion, it would be better to avoid such syntax because yes, we will not be able to put some stuff in code in, let's say, in our code that we control, but in runtime, this will just apply to this anything that will be contained in partial. So, to be honest, it would be safer to replace this with this kind of assignment. And that's basically it. In this case, if we will get wrong properties from runtime, we will not apply it to our newly created object. Okay, let's probably check service. Entities. Why it was not replaced? Interesting. Okay. What else do we have here? How do we create user? We have create user DTO. We create ID of user using UUID v4 from UID UUID library. It could be random UUID from crypto module of Node.js, but UUID library is also okay. We create timestamp using date now functionality, and we put it into created at and updated at. That's correct. And after that, we put newly created user object to our users database. Database service is provided using dependency injection to user service. And of course, when we create new entity, its version is 1. It will be increased incrementally on every update. This is checked into tests, so we don't need to check it manually. And then we return newly created user. Okay. Method findAll simply returns all users from database. Nothing interesting. Find one. It tries to find entity in user's database by ID. If entity is not found, it throws error. Otherwise, we return user. What else do we have here? When we update user, we try to find user and check passwords. We will get this error from find one. This is how we meet this acceptance criteria that tells us that we shouldn't update non-existing user. And if user password is not matches with user's actual password is not matches with old password provided, we throw new forbidden operation error. By the way, let's check what's inside of this error. By the way, I didn't mention that it's good to name your errors with error word on its end, because it will explicitly let you know that this is error. Probably we replace some not found status code. Found. Oh, we replaced it here. Okay, let's probably omit this because it was not my goal to fix everything, but just to let you know that some stuff may be useful. Okay, we just checked user service as far as I remember. We create we replace password, we create a new timestamp for updated at, and we increment user's version by 1. And after that, we return newly created user. What else do we have here? We have method remove that will try to find one user, and after that it will remove user if it's found. Why if it's found? Because if it's not found, we will get error here. And execution will not proceed to this line. As I mentioned, this pattern is not okay for real world, because in between when you try to find your user and when you try to remove your user, or if you try to find your entity and after that you will try to update your entity, something may happen, and between those operations your entity may be deleted. So it's better to use some methods that perform one operation and throw error if it's not if it can be done. But for this case it's okay, because we have only one user and our database is just array, but just to let you know. Plus, maybe it would be better to switch from filter to splice, because it will work better on bigger arrays than filter, because it shouldn't iterate over all collection. But okay, this one will work as well. If we need to remove values efficiently by ID, I think we could just change data structure and use map here and simply remove entity by ID with O1 complexity. Okay, do you have questions here? What's the point of exclude them? Exclude decorator, I mean. Because we need to remove password from response. We have link to serialization. Okay. Let's probably move on. Let's check albums module. Everything is standard. Controller service. Let's check controller. We have endpoint part here. What is controlled by this controller? We have album service using dependency injection. This looks weird, by the way. If we have DB not found error, we throw unprocessable entity exception. We will take a look at what is inside album service, but this looks weird. Okay, let's probably take a look at other methods. Same stuff here. We handle only DB not found error. Everything else is swallowed. Pretty same here. We validate UUID. We parse data transfer object. Try to update. If we have error, we error message end with albums not found exception. You know, this is very tricky to rely on some error messages endings and so on. This can produce multiple bugs. It's better not rely on this kind of stuff. If you want to explicitly check that you've got specific error, it would be better to create some custom error and check that you check like this, that your error is instance of specific error, to make sure that you don't have false alarms or you don't process inappropriate error in the wrong way. It depends on what's inside of album service, but this is not look correct definitely. Because if you have DB not found error, after that you can throw not found exception, or you can throw unprocessable entity exception. This shouldn't be relied anyway. And in delete method, this looks exactly the same as in users controller. Let's take a look at data transfer objects. Once again, let's split it. By the way, we have a typo here. I highly advise you to install some spell checker extension. This will help you to avoid some errors like this. But let's check what's inside. This is nullable. Check if given value is null. Validate if object value is not equal to null. Validation. As far as I remember, this is provided on some on very first link from Stack Overflow, how to implement this decorator. Okay, it's correct, except the fact that it has a typo in file name. And update album.to is the same, it just extends already create album.to. I'm curious, do we use it somewhere? Boom. API YAML. Okay, got it. Okay, let's take a look inside of album service. When we create service, we extract artist ID. It can be null, so it's just string type. We check whether entity exists. This is how we protect ourselves from creating album from non-existing entity. I mean, that refers to non-existing artist. After that, we create album with preserving of ID, and we mix it with album.to. I think that you really like object assign, but to be honest, syntax here can be shorter. You don't need to use object assign so many times. And after that, we put this album into database. On find all, we return all albums. On find one, we find one album in albums database. If we didn't find it, we throw db not found error. I still don't, to be honest, I still don't get why do we throw unprocessable entity if entity doesn't exist. Let's check create method. If error is instance of db not found, entity is considered to be unprocessable. This looks interesting. It's forbidden to create album with non-existent artist. It should exist to be null. db not found for artist or album. We can create album with non-existent artist. Okay, I've got your point, why it works that way, but okay, in code still looks weird. Probably you could deconstruct it a little bit. Okay, let's go back to the service. Find one. If no album, we throw error. If entity exists, object assign album, date album, date album. It's a little bit cleaner to not mutate objects. It's better to create new variable for these purposes. It exists, artist ID, update, remove. I don't think it's a good approach here, because what do we see here? We see that, okay, we meet functional requirements. We set album ID to null for tracks. We also remove album from favorites if it contains it. After that, we remove it from albums database, but according to Node.js, let's say conventions, that we have to split the responsibility between services, between modules, and those entities have corresponding services. I think it would be better if this functionality, I mean setting some stuff for tracks and for favorites, it should be part of corresponding services. So it would be better if this, I don't know, you could have some method like handle album removal, or I don't know, handle related entity removal, that will set corresponding fields in null for tracks, and it should be part of track service. And you could have tracks service here, and it should be provided using dependency injection, just like you use a database service. Same stuff for albums. Because if you need to work with some entity and it has its own service, it would be better that this functionality would be located there. Because for now, your album service mutates some stuff for different entities, and it can lead to unexpected results. And it would like cleaner, because instead of this, you could just have something like this, I don't know, track service, handle album removal. And same stuff for favorites, and it would look cleaner. Okay? This is what I can suggest here. Okay. Everything else is pretty same as for other services, with the same pros and cons. Let's take a look at artist service, module, controller. Pretty same stuff here. Nothing specific. Controller just works with request and provides its to service, and respond with stuff depending on what service done. Same here instead of object assign. Find all, find one. Same here about not mutating objects. Same here about using corresponding services. It would be better to use track service and album service and favorite service. And yeah. What's about interfaces? Data transfer objects. Pretty same. Pretty same. Okay. We checked all separated entities. Modules. Let's check favorites. Favorites controller controls paths endpoint. It provides execution to favorite service, and it simply handles addition and removals of entities. Favorite service, remove artist, and so on. Let's check what do we have inside of this service. First of all, we have enum entities, and once again, spell checker would highlight this error, entities, right? and enum members expected to be in camel case, not lowercase. But we will not try to fix it because we already spent 1 hour on this. We have type entries generic. I don't know why do we need it here, because and this typecast, because we will have correct type here. So even taking into account the fact that we have this typecast here, we still don't have correct type of table, because once again we have this mixed table instead of real one. So let's probably try to remove all those typecasts and let's check what will happen. Entries. Entity. By the way, if we have type entity, we could use it instead of this one, but this table type wouldn't be correct. Okay. Entity. It should be done using generic types and so on if you want to do it properly, but still, if your typecast doesn't produce real types, you probably don't need it. Because when you have proper typing in necessary place, TypeScript get proper type automatically. So, okay. We split this. I remind you that in database service we had paths object that contains fields for artists, albums, and tracks that are arrays. So we try to iterate over those. Sorry. We try to iterate over those properties, and after that, we fill those fields with IDs based on corresponding database contents. Okay. So this is how it works. We store entities, but we return only IDs from this. Add to favorites. We try to find index of corresponding entity. If it's not found, we throw not found error. And otherwise, we push ID of corresponding entity. Oh, it seems that it should be removed. We push this into corresponding entity array. We have methods add track, add artists, add album. It reuses some generic method add to favorite, which accepts ID and entity type. To put it in appropriate database, we have method remove from favorite and reuse it across remove family of methods. How do we remove? We check whether include is verb, so probably it would be better to name it differently, like is entity found, something like this. We check corresponding favorites database for some fields, for some ID. If it's not found, we throw error. If it's found, we just remove it. And let's check add to favorite. Sorry, my bad. I thought that it works not as expected, but it works as expected. We store only IDs there. We don't store full entities. We add only IDs. It's okay. I just mixed it up with different functionality in this service. Okay. Seems that it works correctly. It's nice that we reuse some stuff here. Have we checked everything or not? From my point of view, yes. I just wanted to run linter. Let's discard all my changes. npm run lint. And we have no errors here. So, looks okay. Same as in fast, as per request. Album won't get updated. Depths. Ask my problems about repository and type, and seems to be I have found solution, but it's tricky and I dislike it. I have to import types of DB. Maybe you can tell us, could take a look, maybe in the end of the stream. SRC, generic, repository. Sorry, we have no time to take a look at this. Probably I will take a look at this after stream, and you can write me in private messages. I will answer you when I will have time. How critical is to set up specific version of UID? Is it very bad that I don't have it set? It's better to use specific version of UUID, but it's not very bad if you don't have it. Yeah. By the way, you can use specific API of Nest.js. I don't remember its name, but it's designed specifically for the case when you may have circular dependencies, but it allows you to avoid this. Anyway, DB should manage relations, links, tracks. Why don't have strict null checks in tsconfig? It seems useful to know if have a chance. Yeah, it would be better to have a stricter config, but you were not prohibited from changing it. So, tracks logic, yes, we checked tracks logic. Are you interested in something specific? Sorry. No, we didn't check it. Okay, let's quickly take a look. In controller, everything is looking similar with the same problems. Let's take a look at the service. Constructor, create. We check whether album ID and artist ID exist. After that, once again, we use this object assign. I would suggest you not to use it. What else? Find all returns all tracks. Find one tries to find one track. Update also checks whether album ID and artist ID exists. After that, once again, object assigns it. I suggest you not to use. And after that, once again, it would be better to use favorites service instead of just manipulating favorites database inside of text service. By the way, you could extract this stuff. It's used at least twice, so you could extract this stuff into some method that checks related entities and throws errors if it doesn't exist, or uses underlying is entity exists. Up to you. But if you have this kind of duplication, it would be better to reuse stuff. Everything else looks pretty similar. Object assign, sometimes it can provide issues with typings. It depends on your TypeScript config, but sometimes it can silent TypeScript errors. I've actually seen this kind of stuff, and it's better not to use it unless you have other options. And in your case, you also used object assign to mutate objects. Mutation of objects is in general anti-pattern in JavaScript. It's better not to do it. You are not prohibited from creation any amount of variables you need. So just create another variable. It's okay. It will be optimized in build, in transpilation, and so on. So please don't try to shorten your code or use less variables or something else. Your code will be more stable and error-free. Yeah, you can check explanation from Airbnb config, and yes. Okay, I think we've done here. This student's work looks good, except some minor stuff that can be improved. But in general, it's fine. Okay, let's probably take a look at what is your next task. You have two tasks for next week. Probably we will extend deadline by 1 week, but I'm not sure. I suggest you to start from containerization because you will use a database that you will create there for your next assignment. But it's up to you. You can first try to implement connection to real database, and after that you can try to implement containerization, because okay, you can just install Postgres on your laptop. So what do you need? You have to install Docker. I recommend you to use Docker Desktop, and also create Docker Hub account on Docker Hub. You need to create a Docker ignore file and list all files that shouldn't be included in build context of Docker. You should create Docker file that you will use to build image of Postgres database, and another Docker file that you will use to build your application. Also, you need to create service from those two Docker files, because you are running multi-container application, and your containers depends on each other. In our example, you need to your application container depends on database container, so you need to specify a custom network that will be used for communication between application and database containers. Also, you should build those images and scan it for security vulnerabilities using in-build scanner, and you should push build images to your personal repositories on Docker Hub. And we have scoring for this. Of course, we need README that contains instructions how to run your application. We had multiple issues with Docker, so please carefully write down everything that other students need to run your application. You should configure user-defined bridge, not just default one. Container should auto restart after crash. Also, application should restart if you change something into SRC folder. I mean, application running in container. You should use bind mounts for this. Also, database files and logs should be stored in volumes instead of containers. So it shouldn't be cleared and recreated when you restart your container. Also, you have advanced scope. Final size of Docker image with application should be less than 500 megabytes. Also, you should implement npm script for vulnerability scanning based on free solution, and your build image should be pushed to Docker Hub. You have specific forfaits for this task. You should use specific image, not just like generic one. You shouldn't build your image on Ubuntu with subsequent installation of Node.js and Postgres. You have pre-built images that are optimized, so it's better to use them. Also, if Postgres container is not configured as dependency for application container, you have forfeit for this. Docker Compose also shouldn't contain hard-coded variables. It should be taken from .env file. Also, our standard forfeits for breaking deadlines, missing pull request, incorrect description, no separate development branch, and so on. And what's about second assignment? It's pretty straightforward. You just need to connect Postgres database to store your data. You should use ORM, and for this you should use type ORM or Prisma with Nest.js to store and update data. Also, information that needed for database connection should be stored in .env file. You have this stuff here as far as I remember. Example. Not really, but still you need to store that information there. And Postgres database should be running inside of Docker containers. That's why I highly advise you to begin from containerization task. We have scoring here as well. You have plus 20 points for each entity that works with Postgres database. You have advanced scope if you create your database entity using migrations, not just sync option in type ORM, for example. Also, variables used for connection to database should be stored in .env. At least, I don't know, database name, username, password, something else you may need. Also, plus 10 points if you use type ORM decorators or Prisma relations to create relations between entities. Because of course you can use multiple joins and so on, but it's better to use decorators here. And also for running Postgres in container, if you don't need to install Postgres on your laptop separately and you can just use it from container, you have plus 30 points for this. And you have forfeits for each failing test. I remind you that you using tests from previous task, not with authorization, just npm run test. But your tests should pass because it doesn't matter what is source of your data in memory database or real database. Your logic should be exactly the same. That's why you have not so many points here, but big forfeits. So be careful. Any questions related to this assignment? Mutations always faster than anything else. This is not like Special Olympics on informatics to implement fastest solution. Your solution should be safe, readable, and so on. And mutation of objects is bad practice in JavaScript, unfortunately. Push automatically via Docker Compose or manually. Please elaborate on auto restart on changes. What should be elaborated? You change some stuff. It should work exactly as live reload here. For example, when you run your application in development mode, and I don't know, change some files of application, your application is restarting. It should work the same. Your application running in container should restart. You can use binding mounts for this. Docker Scout is okay for... I'm not sure about Docker Scout. Probably there was another solution, but if it's free and if it scans for vulnerabilities, it's okay. So do we need prod Docker image or hot reload image or both? I think that at least you need hot reload image. But you can create another layer and create prod image if you want. Can we use any type of Docker image as builder, then copy result to node image? Sorry, I don't get your question. Can we use any type of Docker image as builder? You mean multi-stage builds? You can use multi-stage builds if you want. File change should trigger rebuild for container or should start def and container synchronize host and container src folder. File change src should trigger rebuild for container. This is your task, how to implement this. I heard about 2 weeks for this task. I think that we will try to fit into 1 week, but probably we will extend the deadline. Yes. But you may not use multi-stage builds if it's difficult for you. Hot reload image is enough, if you want. Okay. I think we can probably wrap up. We will discuss deadline with team. Probably we will extend it, but I can't promise you, unfortunately. Maybe 1 week is not enough for these 2 tasks, but we will see. Okay, so was glad to see you. Have a nice evening. Please write your questions in the chat if you have some. Bye.